Okay, hello everyone, and thank you for taking the time to participate in today's webinar, SEL Best Practices for Supporting Educators and Students during Distance Learning. Mark, I will hand it over to you.
All right, thank you, Erin. So I'm just going to put up my slide, my opening slide, and then I want to share who everybody is. Hi, everybody. I know many of you, I hope, and if not, lovely to meet all of you. For those of you who don't know me, my day job is I am the director of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence and the co-creator of Ruler, which is one approach to social and emotional learning. We're in about 2,500 schools now across the United States and other countries. And I'm excited about today's webinar. I gave it a new title because I forgot the original one, which is Social and Emotional Learning from a Distance. And I'd like to just turn it over to Dr. Betty Sternberg, who is the co-conspirator in this project. Please, Betty.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm just delighted that there are 1,177 of you out there. Quite amazing. It lets us know that this is a topic that people really want. I called Mark and asked him if he would do this with me, and he doesn't know how to say no to anybody, so that was easy. But he was excited, and I think I was excited with the idea that we weren't, and he who is the guru isn't going to be the big focus of this particular webinar. It's the teachers and administrators throughout Connecticut, most of whom, well, many of whom I know, and I know what amazing jobs they're doing. So you will be hearing from a select group of teachers, one school psychologist, 3 principals, and 3 superintendents, all of whom either have been in the Teacher Leader Fellowship Program and or Mark's Ruler Program, and all of whom, no matter where they sit, have had an abiding interest in supporting their students socially and emotionally, and understand that in order to achieve academically, they need to support kids socially and emotionally, and their parents right now too. But we'll hear from them more. I'm going to stop, and Mark, back to you.
Sure. So these are our participants and our presenters today, and you'll get to know them in a moment because they're going to introduce themselves, and Betty's going to facilitate a conversation with them. So just background information to really get us going here is a couple of things I wanted to share just to get our brains kind of rocking and rolling. Is over the last 2 months, well, 2 months now, it's been approximately since we've been in quarantine. Let me just get a quick raise of hands. How many of you have had some strong, unpleasant feelings? I don't know if you can see the screen, but it's blown up. I think many of us have. And about the last week of March, I launched a study in collaboration with the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, where I'm a board member. And we launched a series to support teachers back then. And we, within 2 days, got 5,300 teachers to share with us what they were feeling. And what we found was, unlike what we found 2 years ago, which was teachers were frustrated, they were stressed, they were overwhelmed, which was not great 2 years ago. What we found in this particular study was 95% of the teachers used the word anxiety, anxious, to describe how they were feeling. And so it was like all of a sudden the frustration has gone away, and the anxiety really has set in. And for reasons that all of you know, they were feeling anxious. I remember one male teacher said to me, "I'm a teacher, I'm a father of 3, I am a coach, I'm the tech coordinator for my house, I'm the custodian of my house, I'm the cafeteria worker. Like, I've got 15 roles. Like, why don't you think I'm anxious?" And I remember I said to him, "Well, maybe you could reappraise that and say to yourself something like, wow, like, I'm freaking talented." He didn't love me in that moment, but it's part of what we're going to be talking about today, is like what are we doing to support ourselves as educators? What are we doing to support our own children and our schools, in dealing with this sense of anxiety? Relatedly, this week actually, just 3 days ago, I was privileged to do a similar webinar, but where I was teaching to 1,100 principals across New York State. And in advance of that webinar, I sent them the same exact survey that we sent the teachers. Lo and behold, the number one word as of 2 days ago that 1,100 principals used to describe their emotional lives was anxiety. For all the same reasons, the same exact things. In addition, especially our leaders who are working in New York City schools in high poverty areas, worrying about getting meals to children, leader kind of worries. A lot of it had to do with the uncertainty about what school is going to look like and be like in the future. And I just want to say what was interesting to me about that, in previous research, what we found was that usually the word stressed came up. Stress didn't come up at all. It was just pure anxiety. And I think the reason for that is that when you looked at the reasons for their feelings, it was all about uncertainties of the future, all about the things they were not able to predict about their own and other people's lives. And this feeling as if like, when is this going to end? And how am I going to know what is the new normal? So with that as our backdrop, really excited today that I get to take a back seat with Betty and really be a listener and a learner, because we've had the privilege of bringing on all these great people from all different roles. And just to show you just for 1 minute some ideas that have come up from the field, with our work in terms of in the virtual classroom, we've had people say, well, how do I find out how people are feeling from a distance? Well, people have been very creative about finding ways to do virtual check-ins with children, virtual check-ins with faculty, just amazing images that we're getting on social media from people doing, again, these virtual check-ins to help students with strategies, doing creative work, in their classrooms. And so what we want to do today really is get granular, get specific, and hopefully you'll leave here with some really tangible things that you can do to support your own social and emotional health and the obviously emotional health and well-being of the people and the children in your district. So Betty, I'm going to turn it over to you and let's go.
All right. So our first speaker is Julia Darcy, who has been teaching for 13 years, and currently she's at the Green Hills School in Bristol with fifth graders. She has presented to our institute, our full day institute, several years ago, and I know she has a lot of specifics because she and I have talked about what's going on, and she's also shared a lot of her emotions with me, many of which are really generally what you said, Mark. So I'm going to let you go, Julia. You'll show them how you're thinking and feeling, and everyone's going to get 3 minutes.
Thanks, Betty. My name is Julia Darcy, and I'm honored to be here representing the Bristol Public Schools. I'm very fortunate to be teaching in a school district that prioritizes the social and emotional needs of our students. In Bristol, we're guided by our North Stars, our guiding principles. And our first guiding principle is creating a positive learning community. We know that students learn best when they feel secure and safe, welcome and comfortable, and when we create a culture that welcomes them into our school. So what do we do to foster that? Well, in Bristol, the first 30 minutes of our school day are all about fostering that community. At Green Hills, we call that squad. And the first part of our squad meeting, the first experience our students have is a greeting. Each student is greeted, each student is welcomed into our community. And that's something that I've tried to transfer to distance learning as well. Anytime I Zoom with my students or have interactions with my students, I make sure each and every one of them are greeted. That can be something simple as, say your name and the last thing you ate, just so that every student is welcomed, or a which one doesn't belong question, or a would you rather question, so that all students are welcomed and heard. The rest of our squad time is pretty structured in school. We have a learning target that's based around the core competencies of CASEL. We have readings and activities and a debrief session to talk about how we use the skills and strategies that we learned during squad in the rest of our lives. And so for distance learning, we're still putting out those squad lessons, and we're trying to give students and remind students of the strategies that we have learned in school, whether those are mindfulness techniques to manage strong emotions or perseverance strategies during this very kind of unprecedented work scenario. Something else I wanted to mention, aside from a formal lesson that I'm putting out to my students, is just a small gesture. I think no matter whether it's a formal lesson or something small, as long as we're focused on maintaining the relationships we have with students and keeping them connected, that's what's most important. So something small as celebrating student work, having a weekly work wizards like I have in my Google Classroom, where I celebrate students and show their exemplar work, just so that they maintain that connection to our learning community. And so whether it's something big like an actual lesson where we're trying to give students social and emotional strategies and skills, or a small gesture, I think it's just important that we're maintaining those relationships with kids and helping them feel connected to their school communities and their classroom communities.
So our next teacher is Anthea Groton. Anthea is with us by sound. She is a kindergarten teacher in in Tolland. Her last name's Groton. That's what's confusing. Nana and I meant to mention this. Julia was Teacher of the Year in Bristol in 2017, and Anthea was Teacher of the Year in Tolland in 2014-15. So Julia also has, Anthea also has a number of specific examples to give us, both in terms of what people were doing before the COVID virus, and then how you're adapting what you've been doing previous in this situation. So Anthea.
Absolutely. Thank you, Betty. Thank you so much for having me. I'm also honored to be a part of the panel. For me, it's always been about my students knowing that I'm there for them, and knowing that I am there to take care of their needs, knowing that I love them. For some students, it's as simple as basic needs. So students that need snack, or are the only student in the class that don't have snow pants and can't possibly get past that can't possibly get onto their learning without moving past that. So being able to provide those things for them. Fostering a warm classroom environment where they really feel loved and cared for and listened to, and modeling all of those expectations of kindness and empathy and compassion, modeling everything that I expect from them in my own behavior. Since we've started distance learning, it's definitely been a challenge. I teach kindergarten, my students are 5 and 6, so it's definitely been challenging. I do Google meetings with them and continue to create, just like Julia mentioned, those warm connections, those relationships, really kind of watching them in the Google meeting and seeing who's engaged, who needs more. I was definitely losing a couple students. I could just tell by their demeanor. So I started doing a Lego challenge, and students were able to come and share with us everything that they built. And I built my class out of Legos, and they all kept asking me, which one is me? Which one is me? So they were able to see that, and that was really great. And then I also did a Google meeting in a fort. So we built a fort in my living room, and the students built forts in their living rooms, and we all had our Google meetings from our living room floors. So having those theme days and just continuing to give them ownership over their learning and over what we're still doing and making sure that we're having fun. As Julia mentioned, you know, we're supporting the families as well. So I have siblings joining me in my Google meetings. I have parents that I'm helping either with tech issues, or some families need just somebody to listen. Then there's families that need more, that need groceries and food. And so, you know, helping to give them resources and, you know, sometimes even dropping off those groceries for them. I'm constantly, as I'm sure we all are, reflecting on if I'm doing enough, if my students need more, if what we're doing is making an impact, you know, if those incredibly long days are meaningful, do they matter? Is all of that work worth it? And I did realize the impact of everything that we're doing. And I just want to say to all of you, it's so worth it. What you're doing matters. On Saturday, my students pulled up in front of my house and had a parade for me, and made signs and decorated their cars. And we're just so appreciative of how hard we're all working. And so what it really showed me is that even though we're trying to figure out so many ways to support them, they're supporting us in their own ways too. So keep doing what you're doing, because it does matter.
Thank you, Anthea. I was going to tell that little story about because we were trying to talk and the parade happened. But at any rate, our next person up is Kasim, an outlaw. And Kasim is a high school teacher, calls himself a wellness educator. Basically, as he said, he's really he's a phys ed and gym and phys ed teacher, a health and phys ed teacher, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He's been teaching for over 14 years, and he is also having focused on his own emotional health. He then was interested in turning around and helping support others in a high school setting. And he's from Lyman Hall High School in Wallingford. So, Kasim.
Thank you very much, Betty, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak today. And I'd just like to say happy belated Mother's Day to all the mothers that are here with us today, because without you, we wouldn't be able to foster this type of compassion and love that we hope to share with our students and the children that we serve. We know that humans by nature are creatures of attachment, and it's said in certain research that the first 3 years of life are really important in terms of attachment and bonding. But I take that a step further with the students that I see as young adults. I take the first 3 classes to get to know them and form a bond with them. But then I could even distill that a little further to take the first 3 words that I say to them when I meet them, and that's to tell them that I love them, to say I love them. Because this is something that a lot of us take for granted if we grow up in loving households where we hear that often and we really feel that. We have a lot of students, unfortunately, that don't get that opportunity. So I think it's extremely important to let them know that there's basically 3 tenets that I go by: safety, support, and love. And without those 3 things, any one of them, it's very difficult for learning to happen. So as a professional educator, I take that task very, very seriously, to create an environment for my students that is nurturing and where they feel safe, and that they're definitely supported in all of their endeavors, and that most importantly, that they're loved. So during my 14 years at Lyman Hall High School, I've had a tremendous experience. I've created a lot of wonderful and positive and uplifting relationships. And over the last three years now, I've been running a mindfulness program called Mindful Mondays at the high school. And it's a volunteer program that we meet, we meet every Monday at 2:15, typically, and we would meet until 3 o'clock. So it's a 45-minute period where both students and staff are welcome and invited to come. I get on the loudspeaker every Monday morning, and I personally invite the entire school body down. In the past, I've had up to 30 people show up, but on a more consistent basis, I usually get about 10 to 15. But it's there that I really get a chance to implement some of the practices that I found extreme benefit in my own personal life, and also to help to create this safe and supportive and loving culture in the school building. So I've had administration show up, I've had teachers show up, and I've had my colleagues in other departments reach out to me prior to exams, coaches reach out prior to games. So I'm just trying to share my smile, my sensibility, my enthusiasm to inspire and motivate everybody around me. And I hope to keep that going, even if it's digitally, as I've been doing as of lately.
Thank you, Kasim. And also, you are teacher here from Lyman Hall. You don't know yet if you're for the district, but interestingly enough, and I didn't purposely do this, it ends up that the 3 teachers who are on this panel are all designated as teachers of the year at some point. So that means somebody noticed that you're doing something special. So our next person is someone I met through email and now get to see her with all of you. Valerie LaRose, who's actually coordinated in Hamden the ruler program for years. She's a school psychologist, and she's been at the school for 17 years at the Shepherd Glen Elementary School. One thing that Val told me, which she clearly cared about, yesterday she told me that she received yesterday, yesterday she said, oh, it's today. I got my certification in social, emotional, and character development from Rutgers University. And she clearly was very, very proud that she attained that. So Val, let's hear what you have to say about what has been happening, and of course you've been in the ruler program, and how you're adapting some of the things you did to the current environment.
Thank you, Betty, and it's a privilege to be here, and I appreciate it's an honor to be here as well. So like you said, for about 10 years, we've been doing ruler at my school. I've been very privileged to work with a great group of people who really feel that social emotional learning is by far the most important thing that we're doing. It's at the forefront of everything we do. What we've done prior to school closure is we've really spent a long period of time integrating the ruler practices into just about every core concept that happens in our school. From SRBI, we have a tiered levels of instruction in ruler. Our bully support plan is completely all about ruler constructs. Our restorative practices all surround the blueprint and restorative justice. We have other social skills programs that we've been using for years and integrated them with ruler being the common language that happens, and then integrating lots of other programs to support it. We spent many years embedding our social emotional learning into our academic curriculum, especially in the language arts. And our entire school climate revolves around social emotional learning. We have the second largest culturally diverse population in the state of Connecticut, and we really take a respectful approach from all the different cultures to make sure that we're representing everyone. And especially this past year, I received a grant to do a mindfulness room at our school. So we've had a lot of emphasis on well-being for both our staff and our students. And really what our school is about is self-regulation, recognizing and understanding emotions in ourselves and others, always trying to elicit that best self, and using strategies which we've been working with over the years, and problem solving when conflicts arise. But so with distance learning, a lot of this is very difficult to do, because right now, when you really think about SEL constructs, it's very three-dimensional. You really need that human relationship and connection, and you're trying to do it through two-dimensional means on a computer. And one of the things that's very difficult in our district is the fact that we can't use live video. So we're really having to try to get really creative. But one of the things I did notice that, especially because I'm in a school psychologist role, is I have a lot of interactions with kids, and a lot of them are, just like Mark said before about teachers feeling anxiety, a lot of students, even very young ones, talking about feeling anxious and depressed. But one of the things I think is very essential is the fact that they recognize how they're feeling. And that's from a lot of the work we've been doing. I can't imagine what it would be like if they didn't know how they were feeling. So what we've really tried to do is get back down to basics and really simplify what we need to do. We're really working on trying to promote resilience in our kids. And one of the simplest and easiest ways we've been doing that is really giving kids feedback, individual feedback about little thing that they do, because for some kids in certain circumstances, it's probably very difficult for them to do what they need to do. we're working on a large platform about self-care. We are churning out videos left and right. I didn't know I was going to be a movie star this year, but that's all I'm doing is making fun, happy videos about making sure that we're taking care of ourselves, which is also for families to kind of watch in the background and pick up some skills, and getting very creative. You know, we really taught these strategies to help our kids, but we didn't know we were sending them into emotional battle. But thank God they know them. So we are really, one of the things, just for instance, I'm working on a lot is working on social studies curriculum for 6th grade around something like as simple as World War II, sacrifices as a home front. And when we really think about and look back, especially for kids who don't know and they feel very uncertain, looking at even kids doing their part during World War II with rationing, with drives at their school, everyone was working for positivity and productivity. Through that, they were able to find hope and ultimately rise successful. And if they can learn from the past, then they can feel the emotional calmness that they need, that they too can survive this as well. Betty, you're muted.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Got to keep track of too many things that, oh well. All right, so we've moved from our teachers, Darcy, a 5th grade teacher, Anthea, a kindergarten teacher, Haseen, high school teacher, Val, elementary school psychologist in charge of ruler. Now we're going to move to the folks who are supporting these folks. They're supporting, of course, kids and their families in their buildings, but they are focused on also being sure that the social and emotional needs of teachers in their school and their building, that there is a culture that enables teachers to do the kinds of things that they're doing. Our first principal up is Sarhana Smith. Sarhana had a dual positive interactions, I guess. One is that her district has been in ruler for about 5 years now, 5 or 6 years. She has also been in the Teacher Leader Fellowship program for the last 3 years. Her school is a K-8 school, which is an unusual configuration for many of our schools. But so she's got really elementary through pre-elementary, even up through middle grades. She's really passionate about factors that interfere with learning, such as the impact of trauma and poverty. And she has spoken to our institute along with teachers in her school to focus on what they've been doing and how they've been doing it. And now she's going to be looking at not only what they've been doing prior to COVID-19, but after COVID-19. And in particular, Sarhana, if you'd also give an example of the meetings that you and I discussed about that you had, and how teachers, how you supported teachers in this work with kids now.
Yes, thank you, Betty. I'm just really happy to be here to represent Bridgeport and speak on behalf of Reed School. So I really do appreciate this opportunity. Reed School is a pre-K through 8 school. And so, yes, I agree with you. We're dealing with many different levels of development here at Reed. I have been at my school for 6 years. Bridgeport has been working with ruler and social and emotional learning for the past 6 years since I started. One observation that I have after working with my teachers for the past many years on social and emotional learning is that there is this sense of a freedom in the power of using tools to recognize and understand our emotions. And that's as adults and also with children. Our school culture focuses on treating each other with kindness and supporting one another. before the school closure, you know, we were really rolling with this. We have been for years now implementing ruler anchor tools in the classroom. Those anchor tools include the classroom charter, a school charter, the mood meter, the meta moment, solving problems with the blueprint. Our teachers have received, for the past 5 years, have received ongoing training from our school-based SEL team. We've done family engagement workshops that have focused on understanding the mood meter, taking a meta moment, creating stress bottles, focusing on mindfulness. We actually had, just the week after we closed, a week or two after we closed, we had a scheduled family engagement event that unfortunately was canceled, that was being led by a parent who works to train children and adults in mindfulness practices. We are lucky because our district has partnered with Yale for the past 6 years, and so we give these SEL surveys to our teachers to assess our PD needs. Yale helps to analyze them, but we also then, our school-based team analyzes them, and it helps us identify the direction that we need to take with staff. All of our teachers have identified areas in each classroom for students so that they can take a meta moment, use calming down strategies, reflect on an incident or reflect on something that has just happened. I just want to share like what some of these things look like. Students and teachers plot their moods throughout the day and they revise them at later points in the day. So for example, students and teachers will start off the school day during breakfast, plotting their mood on the mood meter, and then checking in again just before they go to a special, coming back from lunch or recess just to see how their mood has changed. And the teacher can then address individual students or small groups of students when they see that someone's color has changed significantly. Teachers model for students and they support them in recognizing and expressing their feelings. Teachers are using literature to teach feeling words, vocabulary. Students often will create self-portraits. These are just examples of some of the activities. Students will create self-portraits depicting their best self at the elementary level. At the middle school level, our students set weekly goals envisioning their best self. Our morning announcements end each day with, you know, we strive to be our best self, work to be your best self. Our SEL team has planned and delivered workshops, as I stated, for staff and families. Students and staff across all of our grade levels share a universal language that's associated with ruler. And for example, taking a meta moment. And I have, if you can see, this is a stress bottle. And when you shake it, the glitter moves around. And our students use these. We have these in the classroom. We've done workshops with families to make these stress bottles. But even at the staff level, we have had meetings where we will go in and say, you know what, today's a real stressful day. I need a meta moment. And we'll shake this bottle and put it in the middle of the table. And it really does help bring people back down. During distance learning, we have done virtual mood meter check-ins with students and staff. Students have shared with their teachers guiding them. They've shared how they feel using reflection sheets and surveys, very simple surveys that are done on Microsoft Forms, which is a very quick way of that teachers can implement these surveys for students. Students, because we've been working on this for so many years, students are able to identify and discuss their feelings. Teachers work with students to discuss tools and strategies that are helpful, such as drawing or coloring, taking a walk, talking with a friend or a trusted adult, reading, listening to music. These are like some examples. We just had this past Friday in our weekly staff meeting, our SEL team shared strategies with teachers, and one of our members went over the new ruler online for resources, which there are so many resources available on the ruler site right now, even for distance learning. And you know, Betty, you had mentioned what I did recently. We just had this staff meeting. We now have a weekly staff meeting, a virtual staff meeting on Friday, and we did a couple of. I did have a survey that teachers were able to complete, and then we looked at in real time. But I'm sure you all are familiar with the word clouds, and so just to go back to piggyback to something that Mark said at the very start of this, the question was for teachers, how do you feel today? Think of one word to describe how you feel. And this was at the very start of the meeting, and teachers went into we could all see each other on the screen, but they went into their phones. And the biggest word was tired. The second largest word was overwhelmed. And then you had anxious, grateful, and optimistic coming in like third place for the words that they use to describe themselves. Teachers feel sad not to be with their students. They're worried about how their students are doing. Many of our students they just miss us. They miss school. At the very end of our staff meeting this past Friday, we did have a teacher who created a song, an 8th grade math teacher who created a song. He took a very familiar, he took We Are the World and changed the lyrics so that it was about, we're your teachers and we're here for you. And so he sang it for all of us at our virtual staff meeting. And what we should have done at the end of that, we were all cheering and clapping for him, but what we should have done is done another mood meter check-in at the end of that meeting, because we all left that meeting feeling really happy. But this has, definitely been a very difficult time, but I think that the fact that our students have been working on social and emotional learning with their teachers for the past many years has really given them the vocabulary to be able to, and the tools to be able to identify how they're feeling, and they're able to talk about this in this time of distance learning.
Great, thank you, Sarhana. Lots of meaty examples there, as everyone did. So we're going to move to Jamie Giordano, who is principal of a preschool to grade 5 elementary school in Groton, Connecticut. She taught for 12. She's by the way, she's in the program. She's in the Teacher Leader Fellowship program. She taught for 12 years at the elementary level in a number of places, and she's been a principal for 13 years, 10 of which are in Groton. And she really feels that her main goal as a principal is to be sure that all students, families, teachers, and staff love to come to school, feel welcome, and hear their voice heard. This is not unlike all the things that teachers are saying about how their kids should feel in the classroom, and how then you're hearing Sarhana, and you will hear Gina in a minute saying how staff in schools should feel. It's the same, whether we're talking about kids or teachers or administrators or whomever. So I'm going to give it over to Jamie and let her talk a bit about what they were doing and what they're doing as of COVID.
Sure. Thank you so much, Betty. When this first started, in the beginning, Mark just said how a lot of the emotion came in, anxiety, and I definitely had that. I attended actually one of his PDs that were leading with emotion during this uncertain time, and it really regrounded me to be like, oh yeah, that's okay to feel that way, and I named it, and then I was able to move on to help others. So I say, if you can help yourself, then you can help everyone else as best that you can. So when I started thinking about this today, Betty, I thought of 2 words, and I've been hearing it over and over from the colleagues as far as communication and connection. And right now, those have been obviously the 2 big things that as an educator, I've always wanted to do with my students and staff and families. And we have so many different social emotional strategies and supports in place at the school, from responsive classroom morning meetings to using Zoom to regulation to having bibliotherapy. But how do we do that from a distance? And so I took it from a principal standpoint when I thought about today. And one thing we are able to do, live Zoom meetings. So it's been great. So I pop into a morning meeting with a kindergarten classroom. I'm able to do some flip grids. If anyone's been doing those are awesome for kids to connect with each other in a really fun way. We've also been using Seesaw, which is another wonderful program besides Google Classroom that parents can use to highlight work well back as far as videotaping their child if they're reading a book to them, and they can post that as well. So those are some ways to interact. I also have been posting a weekly video because I thought, you know what, I see kids every day. I gotta still have them see me and know I care about them. So I've been posting to Google Classrooms and to the website a offline video, meaning I'll say use different tools and I'll share like an origami or a STEM strategy or use dice. And I post that. I have really fun with it too. And it's just something else for them to connect to as an adult, because it's super important for students to know that you still care about them. One thing that I have found, I think, as the best strategy right now to connect to families and communicate is to pick up the phone. It's kind of archaic, but to call. I used to call, all the time, and parents weren't always happy to hear from me. Now they're thrilled to hear from you and know, right, okay, I'm being reassured. I'm able to give them strategies and show empathy when I pick up the phone and call, and then they put their kids on. It's wonderful to hear them. I've been doing a lot of that as well with my staff. So picking up the phone, texting them, letting them know it's okay, you got this, giving them that reassurance is really important, that you can't always do it in an email, because I feel like a lot of the times that tone in email, I hear it, so I better pick the phone and call them and figure out what's going on. One thing I've been doing also to support staff is sending a weekly wrap up to say we did this, we could do it again, and highlight and celebrate what we've done each step of the way during this distant learning. One thing in Groton that we've been doing is saying, go slow and grow. So it's been nice to have that motto to help us along, to say, okay, we can do this, we're going slow, and now we can continue to grow. Humor has helped a lot with our teachers, so I'll send links out and resources. Not too many, not too long. You want to be cognizant of that as well, but you also want to send off some things that'll really get them going and cheer them up and give them easy strategies to breathe, take a walk, things like this for a principal to do to be able to support them. We meet all the time. Sometimes there's nothing new, but we just meet to update and say, yep, status quo. Sometimes it's nice to just know I'm being updated, but nothing's changed. I'm going to keep going with what we're doing, and we're doing a great job with it. We're sharing the workload a lot. So we have a literacy group and behavior tutors that are posting their lessons to their own classrooms for teachers to pull from, to share the load, because to create a lesson online is not like teaching in front of your kids. It takes an incredible amount of time. So being able to do that together is helpful. And we've been doing a lot of reflecting. Yesterday, when we got together as a faculty, we reflected upon what's going really, really well. What are some things we want to change, and then brainstormed how we can change it and moving forward. So those are just some things we've been doing. There's so many more, but in the time I have, Betty, I highlighted most of them.
I did it again. Okay. Well, what I was saying is wow. And I want to say wow to each of you. And I really feel that way. And I happen to know a lot about all of your backgrounds in terms of your own children. So you are there doing this for your children, your student children, and you're there also doing these things. You're balancing being a teacher for your own children within there, and emotional support for your own kids. So, and that's true for essentially all of you. So let me move to the last principal we're going to hear from, who is the head of school at Joel Barlow. That's a fancy name for principal. And Gina Pinn is also the assistant superintendent of Region 9, which takes in the towns of Easton and Reading. Gina's done a lot of work through Ruler. She's presented at our institute, our Teacher Leader Fellowship Institute, with her colleagues, teachers with whom she works, and she's got a lot of ideas too. So Gina, it's your 3 minutes here.
My 3 minutes. And I had a long teaching career, and all the classes were about 43 minutes long. So this is a challenge for me to speak for 3, but I'm up to it. So we were asked to frame our comments in what did we do before we went into quarantine, and what are we doing now? How has that changed? So before the world kind of stopped on us 33 days ago, and we counted by day because it's only been 33 days. My teachers are my heroes. What they've been able to accomplish in such a short amount of time is amazing. So one of the the benefits and the platforms that we build off of at Joel Barlow High School is we have a very vibrant, positive school culture. One of the ways we achieve that is as administrators, we greet students every morning. We hold the door open. Only administrators can be perky at 7 o'clock in the morning, but we have that personal connection. And I think that is something that you just heard, that power Jamie talked about in connection. I want to be visible to my students. I want to be seen. I want to see them. One of the ways I accomplished that before we went into this quarantine is through something called Chat and Chew. So it was a weekly time when I would have lunch with the students and they could ask me anything. It was a great time for me to hear what's on their mind, for me to pick their brains in little things and big things. What didn't take a lot of time for me, and it connected me as an administrator back to the needs of the students, because I think it's easy to kind of go in your office and shut the door, and that's not who we are at Barlow. In addition to what's been very important to me in my role is looking after the people who look after the students. So taking care of my administrative team, taking care of the teachers, anything as small as coffee and snacks at faculty meetings to having an open door, this will just take a minute, drop-in sessions. So that's all before we had to break and move school into this distance learning platform. So now what we've done, well, if we know that what we value is having students be seen and be heard, then how do we do that at the high school level? One of the things we've instituted is a daily check-in for students. So they go on, and it seems very simple. They just click a Google form and say, yep, I'm available to learn. The magic happens when they don't click that form. So when we don't hear from them, even for just a day, those students are getting that personal phone call. They're getting an email follow-up and then a phone call. And then more than that, we've had teachers that have done I want to say drive-by, but driven up to a house and just let me see you, wave to me from the window. That's what that student needs, and that we've been able to provide it, I think is a testament to the team that I'm working with. We had 34 teachers and support staff and coaches volunteer to deliver graduate signs to our students. And so we had a little parade through. If you've never been to Easton and Reading, I challenge any of you to use your GPS through those towns. And we found every one of those homes, and even mailed a sign to Arizona for one of our students who happens to have moved out there for the duration of this distance learning. Connecting students to each other. We celebrated our first virtual coffee house, and I was thinking of Val because you did that wonderful video when we were fellows at the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, and we had so much fun with that coffee house to see the students playing live for each other. Some students recorded themselves; they didn't want to get up there and present live. Similar to what you heard before, we had a colleague who changed the words of a song, and he sang in front of the students, and it was wonderful to scan all of those viewers at that coffee house and see so many teachers and support staff. And it's such a monumental sense of loss that we're all experiencing. So to have all of those opportunities to come together. Our virtual meetings, I think that's essential to have, especially those structures and those meetings that we've relied on. I remember thinking of them as, oh, it's such a chore, I'm going to another meeting. And now I look forward to those times when I could see my colleagues and brainstorm and brainstorm together. We've learned that everything takes at least twice as long as we think it's going to take. Creating a memo and doing it on a Google Doc, and it used to be so easy. You could just race that around to people's offices, and now it takes a longer time. So I think my big takeaway is to be gentle with myself, to keep reminding myself that this is a marathon. It's day 33 of a marathon. It is not a sprint. As much as I feel for the students and their parents would love answers to things, my communication is helping people embrace that ambiguity of not knowing. I think it's an important skill because we don't always get to know all of the answers. But that perseverance is such an important foundation in social and emotional learning and building that resiliency. So for all of our seniors, everyone in the class of 2020, there's such a loss that you're experiencing, but the fact that so many caring adults are surrounding you and coming up with our best ideas, and in our school, including you in a lot of that decision making, I just want them to hear that. And again, to end on that note of our teachers doing above and beyond, very long days, exhausting days, because I think as educators, we didn't go into education to have a desk job. You know, this isn't where I draw my energy from, yet we're making it work. We'll continue plugging along, and we'll do it for the students. And we'll be together again soon and safely. So I thank you, and thank you for pulling this together, Mark and Betty. I think the more I hear from everyone else, I leave these webinars just with that many more tools in my personal toolbox. So I thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you all for all of this, and we're going to move to, it's so many ideas. It's amazing. We're going to go to superintendents, and you know, if to be involved in either Ruler or these other programs that may have been different from Ruler, but still programs, and to be involved with Teacher Leader Fellowship Program, you have to have a superintendent, frankly, who sees the value in the program so that they include that in their budgets and they argue for what they're doing with their boards of education. So we're going to speak to Maurine Brummett first, who this is her first year in Wethersfield. She came from, Maurine came from Plainville, got Plainville involved in Ruler, and also got Plainville involved in the Teacher Leader Fellowship Program. So she was clearly a superintendent who wanted to support staff, teachers, administrators in enabling them to make decisions. So Maurine, I'm going to leave it to you. I think you're going to talk a bit about before COVID and since we've been in COVID, and what some of the decisions are that you're facing in light of this.
Well, thank you very much, Betty. I just want to say hello to my friends in Newington and my friends in Plainville. I can't think of a time when having the social emotional learning concepts available to both staff and teachers and administrators has been so important, of course, students as well. And when I arrived in Newington, I certainly wanted to get a lay of the land, not knowing how far into the work they've been at that point, but I was pleased to see that they were well underway in many different concepts, zones of regulation, upstairs, downstairs brain, and I gradually began introducing the Ruler concepts, and I did bring forward Mark's book, Permission to Feel, and offered it up to anyone who wanted it, and I have had over 200 takers, and many have read it, commented to me about it, and really embraced it, and more folks are going to go for training over the summer. But what I noticed is as we got further along with it, I was getting a lot of folks sharing with me what they were doing with the work. I even had a teacher during Dr. Seuss, one of our last big events, surprised me by the book that she had me read to the kids was all about emotions, and she even had the mood meter behind me, and we turned it into a mini lesson. It was awesome. Since we've shut down, I have seen folks really continue to embrace this. I have had teachers, parents, spouses of administrators come forward offering to do yoga or mindfulness training that would benefit not only the students but also the teachers, because all of you heroes in the audience you're on uncharted territory. The stress levels are through the roof. and even teachers who are hitting it out of the park are being very hard on themselves because they just are so unused to this level of distancing from children and all the things that the relationships that we value so highly. So I really have been spotlighting anything that people have done that is a relationship focused. I have a weekly update, and sure, during normal times it might be a little informational, but I've tried to gear it toward spotlighting things that are going well during online learning. And I've had an opportunity to promote cool videos that the teachers have made for students. One that I shared with Mark recently is a student leader together with some teachers, one of my preschool teachers, Kim DePolis, and one of our students, Emery Olette, went in and made a video about how to be in the green zone while you're home with distance learning. And she went through this whole thing with teacher prompting, and she interviewed her family. It was fantastic. And I know the kids related to it very well. So all of these things, and some folks have mentioned the parades. I've been in every parade. I've been in 6 parades, but being out there to watch the reactions, I think that's one of the best things we've done since shutdown, because that's the emotional piece that people miss when they're not with their teachers, when families are not in the schools. So I don't want to, I would be remiss though if I didn't talk about taking care of people while allowing all these yoga efforts, or encourage them. People are doing this mostly on their own. I found it important to hear people out. I've had parents contact me with whatever concerns, teachers with their frustrations, principals who I supervise. Maureen, this is really stressful, and am I doing okay? This parent's really upset. I mean, tons of encouragement, tons of telling people, hey, you're doing fine. And in fact, I often enter a conversation now with how you feeling today. I'm sure Mark is pleased to hear that, which might not normally be the case, but they need that, because this is something that is beyond anything we could have conceptualized. So I think taking care of people is my number one priority, and also being a cheerleader, expressing my gratitude frequently about how hard it is to work in this environment, encouraging folks, spotlighting folks, and just saying, we have our motto for the shutdown, #we got this. And one more thing, we're doing a t-shirt contest in which I'm asking teachers to back and front. The front might be about how we've come together during this crisis, and the back is heading into next year, our increased focus on social emotional learning, because when the kids come back to us, they're really going to need it even more. So thank you for allowing me to be on the panel today.
That's for sure, Maureen. We're going to need it even more. I'm going to move over to thank you for all those meaty comments and suggestions, and we'll go to Steve LePage. And I'm going to turn a little, I'm noticing the time, and we want to allow folks in the audience to ask questions. So I'm going to say to Steve and Janet as they come on, to try to focus on what you're doing prospectively as we think about this. Is a nice step off from what Maureen just said. How are you going? How are you thinking about with folks what opening might look like, and incorporating these elements and really the elements of needing to support kids, families, teachers, custodians, secretaries? How are you going about thinking about what that's going to look like? So Steve, I just threw you a little curveball. You ready for it?
That was a slider and outside. Well, I'm going to do my best, Betty. You know me, I had my slides all ready to go. So I won't tell you too much about, we've been involved with Mark with the Teacher Leader Program. Of course, Maureen and I were partners in getting into all this, and now we're still on the same. Good job, Maureen. Still together here. So, it's been great, our work with Mark and Ruler, and rolling it out as a district, and then using all those foundational elements and the anchor tools to embedding that with our staff throughout the year through training, and having that foundation really helped us when we went into distance learning tremendously. Our staff, just seeing the shift, Mark's book, Permission to Feel, it's just that, giving them permission to feel, and then acknowledging feelings and emotions are so important, that it's okay to feel, and it's okay to have emotions and express them, and to get support from those around you, so important. So having that foundation, and before we went out on distance learning, has been really important. And I couldn't be more proud of our staff. And to kind of get to your question, while I also embed some of the things we're doing now, because I'm really proud of them. I would say that communication is so critical. I know a lot of the panelists said this, but being honest, being forthright, being upfront, timely communication. I send out 2 messages a week. As you know, I'm never short on words, but they've been really well received. We've done a lot of surveys to make sure I'm not over communicating, and the feedback's been really positive. We did a Wordle, and that was one of the things that came across as most positive, communication across the district. So really keeping everyone informed, going to all the governor calls and the commissioner calls, and then giving that information to the parents immediately. And what does that mean for Plainville? We developed a Stay Connected link on our website, and we have all the videos, the things that the other panelists talked about that children created for adults and teachers, and pictures that parents send in, and videos that all of our staff at the high school and district staff created. We see you, we got this, we got you, I should say. A really nice promotional video about the seniors class of 2020, and sent that to all the seniors. So that's all on the Stay Connected site. Really, I've been preaching the importance of physical distance and social closeness. I think social distance is kind of an oxymoron. Like, we don't want them to be socially distant. We want them to be socially close, but physically distant. So continuing to support them in those ways, doing all the things like the staff parades and the building in those supports, and reinforcing all the hard work that's being done around the district. Surveying the staff, surveying the students, surveying the families on what's going well, what can we do better, and then making changes and telling them the changes that we're making for distance learning phase 2, phase 3. Checking in with students a lot. I jump into meetings, and I'll do exercise with a class, and I'll sit there and listen to another one, and that's a lot of fun. Our elementary principals read a story every single day, and they share a story every single day with their entire school, along with their morning announcements. They spotlight students, they spotlight birthdays, Pledge of Allegiance. They keep those routines going to build that sense of routine and expectation. Socialization times. We have this new thing at the high school where there's going to be just a virtual meeting about a certain hobby that a staff member might have, and you can jump in and just talk to one of your favorite teachers about their love of fishing or their love of woodworking, or whatever it might be. Just those connections, those relationships that we know are so important. Lots of shout outs. I started a virtual, we've done Everyday Hero Awards for a number of years. We honor them once a month at board meetings, one person usually. We've had 40 virtual Everyday Heroes, and we do a shout out in my messages every week, and we have 2 or 3 that get a special like Amazon gift card and something nice, just to say thank you. And those acknowledgments come from families and colleagues who just say they're doing an amazing job supporting our district and supporting our kids. Focusing on stress management, coping, really being mindful and listening to their needs. We heard that at the beginning, where the kids were getting too much work. They were stressed out. Our teachers were stressed out. This is a huge change. So we put in catch-up Wednesdays, where we only have a half day. There's no new instruction plan on Wednesdays, and we just let the teachers learn new technology skills. They reach out to kids as more social time. The kids have time to catch up on work they've missed, and then building that in. Supporting our staff, as you asked about, Betty, as we're transitioning back, really supporting our grab and go meals personnel and our custodians. On April vacation, I gave the entire custodial, we've had them working since the beginning. We've kept everyone employed and kept everyone paid since the beginning, with a very small number of like recess monitors being the exception. But I gave the entire week off to all of our part-time and full-time custodians and maintainers and all the kitchen staff. And we paid them for the week as a thank you for just their contributions and letting them know we support them. We want them to have a break with their families. So just trying to do little personalized touches like that to really make people feel special. And we have great people. I'm one person on a tremendous team, and Maurine would attest to that. She knows our team pretty well. But our high school principal, after 2 weeks, he said, if you make a certain percent of kids who are doing their work, I'll jump in the pool. And the assistant principal videotaped him fully clothed. He's 6'6", big, huge guy, but a heart of a lion. He's a great guy. He jumped in the pool because the kids made the quota that he set for them. So a lot of just fun, personalized touches that we're doing and trying to maintain a sense of normalcy. And we've got this.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Okay, so last but not least is Janet Robinson. Now, Janet is currently the superintendent of Stratford Schools. She is not only working through this challenging time. But she was superintendent in Newtown when Sandy Hook shooting happened. So I think it's a sad distinction, but I have a feeling Janet's lived through more crises than we had, and trauma than any of us. And she has. I happen to know that Janet is a psychologist by background, because back in, I think it was 1976, Janet, or 77, it was late 70s, I hired you when you came into the state at a place called Rescue, which was the northwest corner. Rescue was the Regional Education Service Center that served the northwest corner of our state, and believe it or not, was called Rescue then. So I used to get phone calls about, can you get my cat out of the tree? But that was not what this is supposed to be. But so Jen and I go back a long way. Janet has a psych background, and she has, I guess if anyone had to go through these things, you were the right person to go through it. So Janet, you're gonna tie this up for us.
Yes, Betty, you were the first person I met in Connecticut, so here we are. Yeah. Thank you so much, and thanks for all of you being here today. You know, one little word about Newtown. Mark came in to train our administrators in Newtown, and we had plans to continue on with a great deal of training. And then, of course, the events occurred that we did not get a chance to finish. But I often look back on how bonded our principal, our administrator team was, and how we could just talk about anything as our feelings went on in terms of all the things we had to deal with together. And I think a lot of that came from having that opportunity to have even a little bit of that training, ruler training, that we had. And so I think that thank God we had it. You know, you never know when you're going to really need a lot of those skills, and hopefully none of you will need much of that. In Stratford, about 4 years ago, I brought together a lot of stakeholders to do a strategic plan, and really tried to guide some of the thinking with probing thoughts and questions and so forth about what they put in. And lo and behold, one of the strands that emerged from our strategic plan was social emotional learning. And I'm not sure everybody even knew what that meant, but they put it there as one of the 4 strands that was going to be something we developed in Stratford. And so as we've been doing our work, people have, and you know, we have these gung-ho teacher leaders. They go spend some time with Betty, and they are gung-ho, and they want to, you know, take on tasks. So they've really done a lot to implement the action plans that we have. And so they've brought in a number of things, and they've really done a study of assets and what the assets can bring to help students. And they really try to inform other teachers and work on that. We've been doing responsive classroom, pre-K to 8, and then we did some things with Move This World. It's a really fun thing to tag on to the responsive classroom. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how this leads into opening, because I've heard a couple of you say this, particularly we, the superintendents, are always thinking of that. We had one of the first 2 students to be diagnosed, and so we went out before most people. We went out with a plan that we were going to be out for 2 weeks, not knowing what was ahead of us. And so we really talked to teachers and talked to the principals and said, you know, we've got to have fun with this, because this is going to be scary for people. And for teachers, they're going to go home and they're going to be teaching their kids, but there are no boundaries really when they have their own kids at home and they're trying to teach their kids. The boundaries get blurred, and so we need to help them. And so, you know, our job is really going to be to really support the teachers so that they can support the kids. I took upon that, my job is to support the principals so they can support the teachers. So we were meeting and talking every single day and talking about what's going on, what this new thing was. As soon as everybody knows, we are now into our 9th week. of this, and it's been hard work for a lot of people. And what we've been trying to really emphasize is belongingness. Yes, you may be home, but you have this connection with people. So we've been sharing the things that the individual schools do. So one school had pictures of every teacher at home with their family holding up a sign, "We miss you," to the kids, and sent that the kids loved it, and they were sending things back, and it was fun. And then that spurred another school to do something else. And they're trying to one up one another for finding ways to really demonstrate to the kids how much they're thinking about them. And we had some serious conversations about those students that we just couldn't reach. They were not responding, they were not engaging, and everybody has jumped in that, and just, as they say, it's all hands on board. Everybody's trying to reach those kids. And got a call from one of the principals recently and said, "I just hit 100%. I've got them, got every one of them." And and that's not easy. And we managed to get out. We managed to get Chromebooks out to every single kid. We have a high poverty, and every single kid got a Chromebook. We got some hotspots through a small grant. We got those hotspots out so that kids could be connected. And we've just been, everybody's had a purpose. Early on in the year, we sponsored the Connecticut Food Bank coming in on the first Saturday of the month. And our teachers in 3 of our schools volunteered to put that together and just, make sure all the food was given out to folks. Well, and I called them, and when this occurred, I said, "What are we going to do now that we have this isolation, social distancing?" Not one just says, "We got it. We're all set." Not one person dropped out. Everybody had a role. They packed up all the food ahead of time. Cars pulled up. They gave the food out, and they have roles, and they took it over. And the enthusiasm of those teachers as they're working together to help these families, and they were so proud that they've been giving out more and more and more. And I think that giving has been a really important piece of this. And of course, the families are seeing how engaged these teachers are with being right there, knowing that some of their basic needs are not being met. And so they're concentrating on that. Right now, and looking forward, as we always have to, we have opened up 2 task forces. On one task force, they are talking about what does it look like when we come back for academic, social emotional learning, and family engagement. The second one is dealing with logistics. So it's the facilities, the safety, all those other things. So I put out word that we were going to do this. I have been inundated with volunteers from the community, from the teachers to the, I'm just inundated. Matter of fact, my secretary said, how are you going to manage these huge groups? I said, well, I'm breaking them down into small groups. I got a plan. We're going to do this. But right away, they knew that social emotional had to be a big piece of that, because even though we're trying to meet the needs of the kids social emotionally and connecting, that belongingness through their connections and everything they're doing, we also know that some of those kids, the only structure in their lives was school. And the way they're spending their time now may have some consequences for them, and we want to be prepared to be there for kids when we finally do come back. And so we're looking at that through 3 lenses. One is we come back in the fall. 2 is we don't come back for a while in the fall. Or number 3, we come back and we go back out again, so that we can be thinking about those through each one of those aspects. And so that's where we are right now in planning with that. I spend a lot of time talking to the principals, and when I hear one of them talking about something that's troublesome or whatever, I make a personal contact. Let's talk about that. How you doing? And I think that's a powerful message. And I love seeing all the things that they're doing. They send me everything. The Friday, this day is the day that they're all dressing up, and they're doing a pajama day, just as the elementary schools would have done anyway. they're still doing that. And we've instituted on Fridays, I heard Steve talk about Wednesdays. On Fridays, they meet with their kids, for their students, for only 1 hour. And then the teachers have an opportunity to have collaborative time with their colleagues. So that's time they can share some ideas of things they've done. And they really keep themselves sort of re-energized. And that's what we're really hoping we can maintain through this. So that's where we are.
Great. Again, I'm wowed by listening to all of you. And now, folks who are out in the audience, I'm going to move this over to. You know what? I'm getting so tired myself. I'm going to move this over to Mark so that he can take some of those questions or comments and lob them over to the panelists.
So why don't we still have participants who've got that perseverance and strength to stick with us. So I appreciate that, everyone on the line. Why don't we give everybody about 1 minute to just generate what are your thoughts? What are questions you might have for our panel? And while we're doing that, I'm going to push the panel on one question that you're not prepared to answer, but we'll see how well you do at it. You're at the end of your rope, you're tired, you're hungry, you've got emails, you have your own children if you have your own kids, you have pets, your brain is blowing up, you are anxious, you're overwhelmed, you're stressed, you're frustrated, you're having 15 feelings. What is your go-to strategy to support yourself? And I'm going to give you literally 3 seconds to say, what's your go-to? And we're going to start with Val.
Okay, so usually what I do is I walk right out of my house and go out. I live down at the beach, so I go right down to the water and take a big breath. So I can take my meta moment, get myself back together, and get back in there and realize what's important.
All right, so you get out, breathe, and then, all right, Jamie.
Take a really long run. It's absolutely something that just rejuvenates me all the time, and I get great thoughts when I run and creative ideas.
And there's research to support that, by the way. Steve, what's your strategy?
Exercise. I either ride my spin bike for an hour or I go in the garage and do jump rope for an hour, and same kind of benefits as Jamie mentioned.
Look at everybody's, all these like athletes, like, see, you get double benefits. You get to regulate and you get in good shape. All right, Gina.
Not an athlete here. I should say I just pick up Permission to Feel and I just read a couple of pages. And what I do, though it's a great book, I like to just sit quiet and not make a decision and totally empty my mind because we're moving at such a fast pace. I wish I ran. I wish I lived by the beach, but really just sitting quiet is a really nice strategy.
Thank you. Julia.
I would normally say exercise, but I have 3 children under 6, so I don't get quite enough me time to do that. But I just try to practice gratitude and focus on the positive things that I have going right now. And so I feel like I always have a child on me. So by practicing gratitude, by looking in their eyes and just recognizing what is positive and what is good around me.
Thank you. All right, Kasim.
Get outside with my 6-year-old son and play whatever pops up into his head.
All right, so forget about you. It's all about the kid and just play. Love it.
Exactly.
Maureen.
I am a fan of hiking, and lately, during shutdown, looking at birds and watching their colors and movements, very relaxing.
Nice. Anthea.
Definitely reaching out to friends and family as much as possible, and I do yoga every day.
Nice. Janet, what's your strategy?
I actually have 2. I saw the most wonderful therapy dogs in Newtown, and see these kids would just dive into a big old golden retriever and just hug them. So I have my own now, and we go for a walk. And the other thing I do is I like to knit.
Okay, lovely. Thanks. Sarhana.
I have a treadmill, so I run in the morning, every morning, Monday through Friday, and I make a conscious effort to not watch the news like after dinner. I'm kind of done with the news for the day.
Yeah, it's funny. Every time I get into a fight, at home, it's because the news is on during dinner. It's like negative primer. Thank you for that. So maybe we should all just take a nice long inhale and an exhale. And got some questions here. I guess that one question is, in your schools, are you using more like a group of SEL instructors, or are you making sure that all people, across all subject areas and fields of expertise, are doing the work? Anyone want to respond to that one? Val, go ahead, and then we'll go to Sarhana.
At our school, everyone's using it. So because it's been so integrated into our curriculum, it's just part of the day. So we've had so much training for our staff, and we have buy-in by, I would say, probably 99% of our staff at this point. After so much time has gone by, everyone sees the value in it, so everyone just uses it. And I think they don't even realize they're using it. It just has become so part of the day.
Nice. I want to give, Val, I have to give you a shout out. You don't know this probably, or maybe you do, but the former Surgeon General, do you remember when we visited your school, Vivek
Yes,
Murthy?
I do. Mm-hmm.
Well, his book came out just last week, and he showcased the work in Hamden.
Oh,
Yeah.
Do you know the name of the book?
Your school. The book is called Together.
Oh, excellent.
So it's about loneliness, and very proud to know that he took that visit seriously and wrote about it.
Thank you very much for telling me that.
Sarhana, how about for you?
Yes, in our school, SEL is really teacher-led. They're responsible for training the staff. Our team is made up of all teachers as well as our support staff. Part of the reasoning for me bringing it to morning announcements every day was to basically allow everyone, including our office staff, our paraprofessionals, to hear about it. And to learn about it, because we did face challenges with staff training, with paraprofessionals not necessarily being on the clock anymore, with office staff needing to be in the office. So by us also utilizing a lot of the modeling and the training over morning announcements, they have also taken on the language, and they have an understanding. So it is definitely school-wide across all adults, regardless of discipline, position, and all of that.
Thank you. So one other question I have, which is related, and maybe you can answer this one, Jamie, if you're interested, is, around equity. Obviously equity is a significant challenge that many schools and districts face. And equity has many lenses, right? It's racial equity, it's teacher burnout as an equity issue, right? A burnt out teacher is not going to be delivering good instruction. And even with SEL, right, there's various levels of interest. I've had teachers say, like, my job is not to talk to my students about my feelings. It's when I run the other way. But so what do you do in a district where there may be this issue of equity of implementation of SEL? How do you manage that? What are your thoughts around that in terms of these 10 teachers are into it and these are like, get out of my face, I'm not doing it? How do you deal with that as a leader?
So,
Jamie?
Yeah, definitely. And I have to say it is a whole school approach for us. We have made sure we've been lucky to have half days built into our year-long schedule so that we can have paras provided with PD as well. We have every staff member actually trained in QPR, which is a nice thing that was done from our school psychologist and our social worker. And it's something where every student knows every adult is a trusted adult. So that's been a really nice thing. We do responsive classroom approaches, mindful approaches, mindfulness, restorative practices. What I did was I built a schedule that allotted for building in those morning meetings. And in the beginning, it's gotten so much better too. We had teachers come in and support. So we have somebody modeling for them. Well, I'll run it for you. So you give that teacher another teacher with them to support them through it, and then little by little they really do see how valuable it is. We've had other people join when we had restorative practices and restorative circles, and then we shade out and they take it over. So we have been able to provide them with another teacher for that support.
How about a superintendent? I'd love to hear from a superintendent around, like, you've got 6 buildings in your district, 3 of them are into SEL, 3 of them aren't. Like, what do you do, Maureen?
Well, I mean, that's some of the work I've done this year with getting a lay of the land. And right now it is very teacher driven with actually some central office support from my assistant superintendent. But I would say we're so early on in the process, I can't necessarily expect everyone to be on board, but I have set the tone that next year we are moving as a district in that direction. And I think this crisis, if there can be a silver lining, may be that people understand that we've got to consider where we're coming from with our emotions to get at the children and reach the children. So I think it's, if you want to give it a little bang out, that's been a help.
Thank you. All right, my last question is going to go to everyone, and you've got 10 seconds to answer it. I know that social and emotional learning will be infused into the immune system of my school or district when? I know that social and emotional learning will be infused into the immune system of my school or district when? And obviously it's a finish the sentence. We'll start with Sirhana.
As I'm sitting here thinking
Alphabetical order.
of so many things. You know, so I'm going to speak almost from a district level. In our district, we have students that move frequently throughout the school year, so we can get new students registering in May, and those students are in 6th grade or 7th grade or even 8th grade, the year that they are graduating. We typically see with our students that we've had year after year, there is consistency with that language, with understanding how this works, and just, you know, they're all good. It's when we get new students that come in, especially late in the year, that we end up putting a lot of energy into, because they're not coming from the same background as our students. And so I think to go to your comment, I'm sorry, to your prompt, I will know it's infused into the immune system when we can take in new students from across the district, and they're basically have the same language, have the same common understanding as our students that have been with us for years.
Thank you. How about you, Janet?
I'd have to say it would be when a student does some aberrant behavior and the teacher does not think that this is grounds for punishment.
Thank you. Anthea? Sorry, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I think when it's no longer something that is on the schedule, but rather something that is embedded in everything that we do, and all teachers know how to deal with all situations that the students may bring.
Thank you. All right, Julia.
I would agree. I think it's when students can embed their social emotional learning into all aspects, not just in school, but also at home with their families, after school, in clubs. I think that's when we'll see it. And just to follow up about that question that you asked those administrators about how to get teacher buy-in, when you lead with the why and you allow everybody to really understand the importance and the why before the what and the how, that's really where you build a culture and a community that values the social and emotional needs of our scholars.
Thank you. Kasim.
I think we all know that the educational environment is constantly changing, and the only constant, or the relative constant, in the building are the adults that are there to support our students. So I would have to say that when each adult makes a personal commitment to devote themselves to transforming into the beautiful people that they aspire to be, then our students will flourish in ways that we have yet to imagine.
Thank you very much. Maurine.
I think I will know it when I go into a school and I feel it, that it's everywhere in the school.
All right, thank you. Gina.
I will know it when I look around and I see a building of adults and children that are compassionate problem solvers, that have more than one way to solve whatever challenge comes up, and no one gives up. I'd love to eliminate the F, right? No one gives up. They just keep going.
Thank you. Steve.
I'll know when we have that feeling, the same feeling across the district everywhere and in every one that we had after you came and presented in Plainville, Mark. You know, even people that were kind of walking in there skeptical and naysayers walked out of there thinking this is good stuff. And when everybody's living the charter in the school and the classroom and really buying into that and supporting one another and feeling the way they want to feel and being supported and feeling the way they want to feel across the district, and parents understanding that as well, that's when I'll know it.
Thank you. Jamie.
It's such a priority in Groton, and I'll know it's infused when I concur with so many what they said as far as knowing why you're doing it behind it, and as well as being able to have students generalize it, because they can know what to say and how to do it, but it's when they do go ahead and act upon it. So that's something we've been working on a lot, is having students then sort of practice it and do it in general.
Thank you, Jamie. And Val, you get the last word of this one.
I knew it about 5 years ago. And there was actually one moment when I knew it. We were actually doing a staff workshop, and we were kind of being silly around if you really knew me kind of activity. And everybody was giving silly information. And then it moved very, very quickly into some of the most devastating things that have happened to people. And they were actually feeling so emotionally safe with each other, and in a group of about 45 people, that they were able to say how they truly felt about things and feel that support. And then I knew those would be the change makers for the students, because now the students have the people supporting them, and they were able to walk the walk, and they're still doing it today.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Well, we learned a lot. We sat a lot. Now we have to all go out for our walks and get some air and stretch and move. I'm going to let Betty say the last words, and thank you for your time and for your creativity and for your inspiration.
Yeah, thank you all, Mark, for agreeing to do this with us, and all of you who had such meat to share. I'm going to harken back to something. I had, as commissioner, you always did a back to school address. And I had a back to school address that was called What's Important. I looked it up in my files and found that this particular address, What's Important, I had given in August 23rd of 2005, 15 years ago. And there are a number of things I said, but I'm going to give you the key, because remember, back then is when NCLB and the focus on achievement and reading, that was the main thing. And I said, we must focus on the academic achievement of our children, but not to the exclusion of focusing on their social, emotional, moral, and ethical development. You all, we're seeing a flip. That maybe the good side of this is that we're going to see a flip. And I wouldn't have to say we must focus on academic achievement, but we've got to say we must focus on, and that we are saying that, on the social, emotional, and I'd add moral and ethical development of our children as a foundation to what they will achieve. So that's.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Betty. So before you hang up, we're going to get a Zoom photo of everyone showing their best SEL selves, so I can have this to memorialize ourselves. Are you ready, everybody? Let's go. 3, 2, 1. Awesome. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Well, share the secret.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Have a good evening.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you.